to talk about like ways that we can make their curriculum easier, because that's what we're talking about. How do we keep our kids included? One of the things I think is really important is knowing the readability of the text. There are programs, and there's a couple free ones I stuck in here, but things like Snap and Read and a few others will tell you the readability rate of a piece of text. And if you have a kid who's a lower reader or whatever, and you're wanting him to read it on their own, bringing down the readability, which is very, it is possible to do that. We might want to take a look at that too.
Yeah, so here's the Hemingway app. .com, and this will give you a readability. I think this was Little Women. I just grabbed it out of the Project Gutenberg stuff and threw it in there, threw a little snippet in there. And it gives you that grade 5. It tells you it's good, but then it even goes into ways that you can then alter some of this text and change it to make it more readable if you have a student that isn't quite at that grade 5. And if you go up into the help here, it actually tells you and gives you suggestions and tells you, explains what those different areas are. So that can be helpful. So just a real quick. And this is free, the HemingwayApp.com.
A couple other ones that we put in there. There's a visual dictionary that's online, and those are all linked that you can get at. There's a readability where you can actually take something, copy it, paste it in there. The visual word, that one there, Jennifer.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, go ahead and click on that, and I'll show you what. Yeah,
got it.
I found this very interesting. For some kids, they really do well with something like this, especially I found our EL students. Yep, go ahead and just explore. And up in that where it says words, so it says visualizing a word, just go ahead and type the word dog in there, just because you'd be surprised what this is going to come up with. And now it's giving you a graphic organizer. Amy, I don't know what this is going to do for someone with visual impairments, but what it's doing is it's just branching off and giving you all these different thoughts or ideas that might involve the word dog. So it could be a canine. It could be a hot dog, a Frankfurter.
A hot dog, a Wienerwurst. I love it.
But it's really kind of great because it's giving kids more language. So if you know that your student, one of the big stumbling blocks for them being in Reg Ed is they don't have a good base of or good vocabulary base, maybe this is something you want to throw towards them so that they can kind of learn more words. Especially if our kids with autism, I mean, like a dog is a black dog and a black dog is it. If you throw in a Chihuahua or a Dalmatian, they're like, not a dog. And I'm like, yes, it's a dog. So it's the same kind of principle.
I could see this being really useful for some of our EL teachers as they're trying to show like multiple meanings of a word and just really having that discussion of how that word can be used in different contexts. And it looks like it's also
dog-eared on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and it looks like it's also categorized by the type of word it is. So if it's blue, it's a noun. You've got adjectives, you've got verbs. So that's kind of neat too.
Yeah, and I think isn't that based loosely on the Fitzgerald key kind of thing too? So,
I'm not sure if that matches up quite, but yeah.
Meaning a little bit like that. We put in there a visual dictionary again, so getting pictures for words. Again, if that's your student stumbling block, that's a great place to start, as well as the visual words. So we can go to that, next slide there, that'd be great. So ways to make the curriculum accessible. So let's think about that. And by the way, Amy said Newzilla. Yeah, that's another really good one too that I've used that can help with articles that may be at a lower readability rate, but it's still getting the great information in there for kids. And again, we talked about programs that embed options. And, again, I think this is worth, if you've never gotten on a committee before, sometimes getting on those curriculum committees is awesome, because what the companies say are accessible, they're not. They're like, well, it reads. And I'm like, I need it to do more than that. You know, can I take that and make it into ASCII code for someone who is visually impaired?
Ooh,
You know, will it close caption? Go
total,
ahead, Amy.
total pet peeve. Their VPAT statements, when they put them out, voluntary impact statements, and it makes it look so accessible, and then you are just, you get it and you go, uh-oh.
So if you get the chance, be on those committees, because if we can get more and more curriculum in our classrooms, it's accessible to all, and teachers have less stuff to do to it, it makes a huge, huge impact on keeping those kids' butts in the seats.
And we're kind of getting like the curriculum committees, even if you get like, they have picked something that you're like maybe not, you know, totally in with, but, you know, working with them to teaching them how to contact the publishers and submit their stuff to the NIMAC for to get it into Bookshare and things like that.
In our AT department, one of my colleagues does more of our reading and writing supports in our district. And she got sort of in with our teaching and learning, our curriculum department. And she came up with a sort of a check sheet, a checkoff sheet. And now all of our curriculum that is being purchased in our district, they go through that accessibility checklist that she's helped created. And we're not purchasing curriculum that doesn't have some of these features built in, because so many curriculums aren't just, you know, you're buying a book, but it is, you know, you're getting that digital content, and it has, you know, like videos embedded and math tools and manipulatives and all of that sort of stuff. And so we're just making sure that all of that is now accessible for all of our learners, and we're purchasing things that have those features built in, so those kids don't look different, like we talked about in the beginning. You know, it's accessible to everybody. Everybody has the opportunity to use those features and tools.
Think about with everything that we're going on right now, that if all of a sudden we're back at home, you know, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it happens to be, and the student doesn't have the textbook, if the textbook's online, we have access to all then, and you have access to more of those tools. One of the things I used to do with my students who are AAC users is I went around and talked to their reg ed teachers, and I said, okay, if you have specific questions that you want them to answer, if you can give them those questions up front, or say, you know, in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you, you know, to give me 3 laws of gravity or whatever it is, and to give them time to type it in while other things are happening in the classroom. So things that way that individual isn't under the gun, so to speak, to have to quickly type that out, because we know that the more pressure that they're under, usually it makes it even harder, right? So it's a really good way. And sometimes even our kids with selective mutism, or those kids with just different behavioral things, give them a heads up. You know, we're going to ask this, this, and this, okay? So that they have an idea what's coming. And oftentimes it makes a huge difference for them, so that they can be in the classroom and not feel under the gun.
And to go back to that UDL perspective, giving them multiple means of expression. Not everybody is comfortable, you know, saying something and answer out loud. You know, that's why, again, virtual learning was so neat. You saw more participation from some of those students who were willing to take chances and put things in the chat, maybe instead of raising their hand. But again, you know, some kids can show a lot through project-based learning. They can show a lot through drawing and, you know, just those different, that variety of expression doesn't always have to be just that traditional, I'm going to ask you a question and you raise your hand and answer. So
Even given emoticons or something like that, how do you feel about whatever? You know, it gives another kid another way to do that, especially if someone who's a poor speller. You know, so take the barriers, figure out what these barriers are, take them off the table, and let's go on. So we'll go on to the next slide. You want to go ahead?
sure. So a couple just free or low cost tools. Rewordify is a nice website you can go to. It simplifies text by substituting easier words, and Rewordify is actually built into and used by Snap and Read. But if you don't have Snap and Read in your district, or maybe you don't have access to it at home or in your community program, Rewordify can be a helpful tool. And then I think it was Amy who brought up News ELA or Newsella, and that is free. There are parts of it that are free. So the current events are free, and then there are paid versions for different subject areas. I don't know if I still had that one up. Can just show you. But it actually levels the text. It gives you a lot of articles at varying different, so here it's Groundhog's Day. So let's look at a Groundhog's Day article.
The rodent of the weather.
Oh, maybe I was in the wrong thing. Let's see.
So there's an ability to search, so you could search or browse in different content areas too, science, math.
There's a bilingual function, so they do have some articles in Spanish, but here we've got a reading level of 1120, but it also brings it back down to 480. You can have it read out loud, which is a nice feature. You can have it printed out if you have somebody that just does better with that paper and pencil. But it's just nice that you can assign it to a student and have various students read it at various reading levels. So it's really easy and quick to use. See. Another one that is on here is Tar Heel Reader. So Tar Heel Reader, I did Hatchet is an exemplar text in here, and it will, you can use switches with Tar Heel Reader, so you can have a little bit of interaction. It will read it out loud, and you can create your own stories. So if you have a student that's reading something in an ELA class and you want to help break it down and offer a summary, so this would be more of a summary than a simplified text for maybe somebody with a more significant intellectual impairment, but you still want them to be participating, Tar Heel Reader is really great. And then you can put pictures on, excuse me, on it, you know, for that multiple means of representation. And again, there's some that you can search. There's a lot in there, but you can also find one, create your own. And then Kathy, did you add Flipgrid or did I do that?
You added that.
So then there's Flipgrid, which somebody else had mentioned. So you can record answers, you can do videos. Also, Canva is another nice one where Canva is actually free for teachers, and you can do a lot of really cool things with creating like comic strips for visual representation and getting more of that engagement. They have tons of templates. Here's one on the life cycle of a butterfly. That was, these were all done. But again, you can create your own. And Canva also has AAC graphics. So there's an individual, if you search for drawn to AAC, you'll find even representations of people that are using communication devices, which I love too.
Awesome. Well, again, it's modeling, you know, we got to have those good models.
Yeah, Canva can be a really great visual support tool. Another one that we talked about or that I put in here was sparknotes.com. Just sort of a caution is that there are lots of ads on SparkNotes. So you would probably not want to just assign this to a student, but if you're using it instructionally, working one-on-one or in a small group, it can be a really useful tool. I'm going to go back into slideshow mode so you can see it a little better. But this is Romeo and Juliet. And so again, sort of makes it into a graphic novel for that engagement piece, for somebody who might just really have difficulty comprehending. It's going to not give you, the full text of Romeo and Juliet, but maybe summarize the main common themes. So for some of our older students, things like this, we really need to think about that engagement piece for some of these students, especially our high schoolers who sometimes have just been sitting through all of these classes and not necessarily engaged. So if we're going to suddenly change that, finding things that interest them and utilizing those for getting more participation and inclusion. And then Kathy added Readtopia. I'll let you talk
On the
about
same
it.
kind of, on the same kind of line, Readtopia is a paid resource, but they have high interest local books. The one on the left is A Wizard of Oz, which was just newly added in there. So it has, again, it's those nice comic kind of graphic novels. So the kids can still be getting the information, but it may be less text, and therefore they're able to spend more of the energy looking at the pictures and less text, and it doesn't make them so apprehensive about learning. The one on the right there is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So again, they have a lot of wonderful content that is in Readtopia. So if you're interested, there is a free ones there on the Don Johnson website. So you can take a look at those.
The company just changed names for those of you that aren't familiar with Readtopia. Don Johnson did put it out, but now they've branched off like Snap and Read and their writing supports to combined with Text Help and Read and Write for Google. And then they are creating sort of a branch or separate company called, it's Building Wings. Is that what it is,
Building
Kathy?
Wings. Yep.
And that's where more of their reading supports for curriculum type stuff will be housed.
Other tools that may help with some access, always, the more that you can keep it digital, the better off you're going to be for a lot of students. And we've talked about text readers, and we're not going to talk tonight about Bookshare Learning Ally, but we're going to put a plug in for our next COP meeting, because Amy Snow is going to be doing a lot about how to access specifically text. So we're going to talk more about those things in our next one, but know that the stuff is all out there. Bookshare Learning Ally, keep it digital. We want to talk about math because our kids are in math. I've had a lot of kids who can do very well in math if we just give them some adaptations. So if you've never used an app called Go Worksheet Maker, that is a great app. The student version is free. The adaptation, the part is paid for the teacher. And with Go Worksheet Maker, you can take any paperwork and make it a drop. Everything can talk, you can draw on it. There's just wonderful things you could do with that. And the same with Math Paper HD. It's another app that helps kids line things up. If you have students who are doing math problems, a lot of times worksheets don't do that. And you had to kind of go back there and do it like in reverse order, not as you would actually do a math problem. So that's a great one to look at. There's Cami, of course, and PDF Annotator, keeping things like in Google Classroom. And then you added whiteboard chat.
I'll show whiteboard chat during the music section, but I'll go back and show you a few pieces of the math stuff too.
And Amy did put in the chat about math shares, kind of like Bookshare. And I did use that for a couple of my students. It was in the beginning stages when I was using it. So it's a lot of extra work because you're putting in a lot of the math problems. I did find Go Worksheet Maker and math paper HD a lot easier for my students to use.